Okay, this is a Patreon exclusive. Thank you guys. I really appreciate the love and support. All my new supporters, thank you so much. This is me doing the mallet making for Filson, and this is a collaboration for Filson. I just traded some products for them. This wasn't a huge money-making deal. I'm kind of planting seeds, hoping that one day this turns into a bigger endorsement situation. But I'm just down the block from this store, and they like me, and they asked me if I would come and do another demo. Last year's demo went really well. Anyway, this is old stair tread. I'm cutting it up. It's about 1 inch thick, and you'll notice when I do that sort of 2-degree cut, I'm able to flip that little piece and then get that bevel that I need for the handle to fit down the middle. So I'm sandwiching. I got 3 pieces of wood, and I'm sandwiching them, well, actually 4 pieces, because the middle section is going to be these 2 pieces. And I went to the bandsaw. If I was a little bit more thought through, I wouldn't have had to cut that little piece in the middle like I did. But here we are. This is scrap wood. It is going to go in the fire. Problem with this scrap wood, this recycled wood, is that there's a lot of tongues in there, or a lot of biscuits. So you cut right in the middle of something and you try to avoid the biscuits, and they seem to be on both sides of the piece you need. Stair treads were put together with lots of different pieces, so there's biscuits throughout. These are the handles, and you saw that little trick I used to cut either side of the symmetrical. And here I flattened this out, but then ultimately when I stuck the handle through the head, it went a little too deep. So I had to cut about a 1/16 inch of wood, and you'll see it show up throughout the rest of the video. Right here you don't see it, but off camera I glued like almost the thickness of a tongue depressor on either side of that beveled head, so that the handle wouldn't go so deep inside of the head. In hindsight, it probably wouldn't have mattered, because after I took it on the lathe, it was considerably skinnier, so I probably could have got away without putting those tongue depressor pieces on there. It's not in this shot, but ultimately you'll begin to notice them, because I did it off camera right after this stuff. And I'm beveling. This very first one I beveled too much. That's why you'll notice the finished shots of that does not have much of a flat side. The second 2 I beveled a little bit less to give me the opportunity to have a flat side on the mallet. The flat side is where I ultimately heat stamp my name. Cutting the brass tube. This is 3-inch brass tube, and this the camera was inside of the tube. It was a GoPro session stuck inside the tube, and when it fell out I got a flash of the cameraman, that's Brett, and my fan from Iceland. So I thought it was cute to leave it in there. And this is, I forget what gauge this is. This is about 16 gauge brass tubing. The tubing is exactly 3 inches, and the stack of wood is probably about 3.5 inches. It was just that random stair tread size. Like I said, it was about 1 inch, but it was thicker than 1 inch. This is the first one. I wanted to go into the show to show what I was about to make. I didn't want to come there with just the blanks and anticipate getting kind of caught up in a long conversation and not being able to at least finish one sample. So when I began cutting the wood up, I said, you know what, let me make 3 of them for the hell of it. And that's when I realized, right there, you see the facets go really deep. So I was a little annoyed, and I said, let me take this until the facets disappear. I was hoping to keep that flat side. And it's important to get these little spots where the rings are, get them right where they need to be. I made the rings too deep, and I was about to go back in and cut them, and I said, you know what, I'll just sand them off once I get it in place. And it didn't occur to me until I actually got to this point in the build, and now I have to jump to the handle. I think I stop, and you'll be able to see those tongue depressors on either side of the wedge top there, yeah. And so I also learned the valuable lesson that the handle needs to be fatter than it is thicker, if you wanted those round sides to be actually on the outside and with a flat facet down each side. Live and learn. I already made this mallet once before, but these are little notes that I just happened to hit right the first time, so I didn't really learn my lesson. They happened by accident the first time, looked great. Second time, my proportions were all off. But like I said, I just got lucky the first time. Now I actually learned. And when you do a lathe job, you could sand it all you want while it's spinning, but you're still going to get streaks in it. So here I'm sanding with the grain, and I get rid of any of those streaks. Now I'm proud of the mallet. And the rings fit pretty firmly. And like I said, I was going to originally cut them to fit perfectly, but it occurred to me, bang them in place. I'm banging them. I use the steel bricks. Really drives home the point. And I put it back on the lathe, and I just used the lathe tools to bring the ring back to the exact size. And there again, I cut that top off. I probably could have just left it without the tongue depressors and it would have been perfect, but in hindsight, everything worked out fine. And I'm just using a little bit of poly on there. And you know, some guys think my hand's going to explode if I'm not using boiled linseed oil for some unknown reason. In my personal experience, boiled linseed oil is exactly the same as polyurethane, is exactly the same as tongue oil. So I think it's just a myth from some of the guys on the west coast that like to use hatchets a lot. And there I am. I put the ring on and I hammered those brass nails in. And now this is the actual show. Walking over. This is just 4 blocks from my shop. And that's the Filson shop on Great Jones Street. And I'm talking to the crowd, working on the second mallet, using the first mallet to bang it into place. Again, same lessons learned. Gotta be careful creeping up to the diameter of that ring. You don't want to go too far too fast and then it's going to be loose. Definitely want a snug fit. You'll notice I use crazy glue or CA glue to make sure that it stays when it's a little bit of a perfect friction fit. Throw some CA glue in there all the time. And I put the rings on and well, you don't see it here, I cut it out of the edit, but I put the rings on and banged them onto the end of the lathe just to get the snug one. It's always one fits perfectly and one fits snugly. It can never be the same on both sides. And again, I'm using the lathes to bring the girth of the brass to the thickness of the wood. I had to cut off about 1/8 of an inch. And we do a drawing, and this young man wins the mallet. Came from Philadelphia. He seemed very happy. And I did not heat stamp my name on that one because I did not have a big enough flat side. That's why I didn't do it. And we hang out for a little bit. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the fans coming out and talking and hanging out. And I really do consider my fans my friends because when we hang out, we spend a lot of time together. And I really, really, really honestly do enjoy it. That's why I do this. It's become such a rewarding experience in my life. It's perfect. And now here I am making the last mallet. This is on the new upstate shop. And because I cut those facets, those 45-degree chamfers, much less deep or more shallow, should I say, I get those nice football shapes on the sides of the mallet here. This is what I was talking about. I put them out snugly and then I bang them on the ends of the table there. Make sure they get seated in place. And that really works. And because I left the brass proud, I'm able to do that because it's only going to bottom out at the back of the cut, not at the front of the mallet. Once I get it firmly put in place, I go back on the lathe, and I found that the round cutter, those are the cutters from Rockler, chisels, with the inserts at the end. The round insert seems to cut the brass the best. Again, working on the handle. Again, this is where I learned the lesson that the actual bandsaw cut left to right should be wider than the handle is thick. Does that make sense? That way you get nice rounded sides on each side and you're able to keep a long flat facet right down the middle of the handle. Something I didn't learn the first time because it accidentally happened. And so here I am. Happy with the mallets, and now I'm drilling the holes for the nails. These nails are those nails that you would, those little ugly brass transitions that go from a wooden floor to a rug, for instance, in like an apartment. These are the spiral brass nails that are used to keep those in place, and that's exactly what they're sold as. I guess they're intended to be nailed into like a hardwood floor. And now I heat stamp them. I do this partially just to kind of stick it in the eye of the people that don't like when I do this. And then of course just to keep the brand alive. And then while I was in the Louisville, Kentucky Louisville Slugger factory, I saw them heat stamp, and then after they heat stamped, they sanded it. So I did that off camera. I heat stamped it, and then I sanded it with a sanding block, which gives the heat stamp itself a nice crisp edge. And there it is. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate the love and support.